our live stream session. Today, we have a final live stream of our cohort number two, because on Tuesday, we just finished creating a DAO called Connected Community DAO. We funded it with uh, $1,650. And then now they can use that money to actually bootstrap and run with it, and maybe even like become one of the biggest DAO in the world, because the mission is there, the vision is there. They want to help all the communities around the world, uh, in general, but also when there is some disaster. But what I know about it, I was the tutor, but we have Dan and Paul, who were like literally leading the effort of creating the DAO during the course, and they will tell us little more about it. And we have also Aaron here as a representative of Decent, because we built on Decent this new DAO. So welcome everyone. And maybe we already started a little bit about the DAO. And Paul, you were the first one coming up with the idea. You won the competition about the DAO idea and our lesson number two. So tell us a little more, like how this came to your mind, like why you wanted to create it, something like this.
Sure. I think I stumbled into it. It was not something we had planned or been warned that we were going to do. We were surprised by our instructors that we were supposed to go and create a DAO with like no prep at all. And it was a fun exercise where we sat with two people. And the irony was that two of us had some experience uh, in the Ukraine in terms of watching and observing some of the challenges of that country as it kind of like struggles through wartime uh, communication challenges. My experience was getting resources, food, and generators with a couple of nonprofits that were getting in just to try and keep people alive from freezing to death, and how difficult it was to get into local communities. And the other person actually had been in Ukraine and said how difficult it was to get food supplies, uh, not to a centralized area, but into people who were immobile or unable to move around, and how the community rallied behind the interest in people to assist folks. And so we put our ideas together, and then we started talking about other areas where we had some experiences where there were big problems, and then we found that it needed to be broken down into smaller action items. So we kind of combined the interest and our experiences together and created a concept DAO that was a class project that turned into real life initial effort. So it was based on experiences. Mine was big push and hers was little pull, and we just decided that it doesn't make sense to be big push if your community doesn't have anything to work on. It would be just amazing to see the little pool activity come to life, but be ready to drop in big resources when big problems happen as well. So that's kind of the starting point. And then we had homework to try and expand on that. So we took that idea and tried to expand on it. We haven't really thought through the strategy yet, so it's a little bumpy, but that was kind of the starting point for the effort. And Dan came along and kind of added some his experience in terms of his observations and concerns about the idea not being flushed out enough, which I think was the next step in the DAO process. Dan, how was your experience of the DAO? Because it became the class project, and you suddenly were like trying to figure out where it came from and kind of how do we get it going from here.
Yeah, I think you summed it up quite well, Paul. The thing that strikes me about the How to DAO course is that it is a course, and it's also kind of like a DAO incubator at the same time. And even though Punkar, you made it, and Gideon, you made it super clear that we were going to be starting a real DAO, the reality of that kind of hit us pretty quickly, quite early in the process, and and it threw up a lot of challenges. So those challenges were fantastic for the part of the course that is about the experience of starting a DAO. Like I couldn't think of a better way of of learning that is to just like be be pitched into the reality
Exactly.
of it. So I probably had two roles in the during the course, which is really just finished, or should I say the incubator. Um, One was, I think I was a bit of a black hat to the actual organization strategy and what we're creating in the real world, because it seemed like a massively ambitious thing that was we didn't have time to think it through, or even at a kind of, well, um, actually we did get some high level ideas about it that were enough to keep everybody going. Um, but yeah, to me, I just kept seeing unanswered questions. But at the same time, I just loved um, the process of creating the DAO, and I think like one thing that Punkar and Gideon did that worked super well was like, I'll tell the story. We were in class one day, and Punkar, I think you were giving the theory lecture, and you said, so in a typical DAO, there are all these kind of jobs that need to be done, or functions that need to be performed, finance, fundraising, some sub DAOs, roles, strategies. And we were like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. And then next second you were like, okay, now we're all forming teams to do these things, and we've all got a channel in the Discord, and like, boom, off we went, and we were doing it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and to me, what was funny about that was the group that came up with the idea that became the class project suddenly was disbanded into these groups, and we hadn't even formulated a strategy or an idea. So we were texting on the side saying, wait, we didn't think about that. How do we address that? And so there was this side conversation, but there wasn't this we weren't staying in the same groups. We were constantly moving around, which was really good because we got to meet a lot of the other class members. But it moved so quickly. But then you could just see how by decentralizing the decision making, it really empowered individuals to make decisions and then get validation from groups. So you weren't having to go out. So it was both frightening and amazing at the same time. I was like, I don't know, I didn't have an answer. We were structuring an early concept of a DAO, and we didn't have months or weeks to think about this. It was just kind of on the spot, and we were creating on the fly, which is really cool because it showed how fast you could make decisions. And the class was not going to slow up for any kind of bureaucratic practices that we're accustomed to that we just do not want in the process. So it's amazing how quick and nimble the decentralized model is, and it's scary at the same time. It's like, okay, we're moving super fast.
I wanna
also
actually like
saw
really.
kind of, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Gideon.
I know. I just saw then that the reality of this thing actually got up to you during the process. At least that's what I noticed, because you were asking a couple times, like, guys, is this for real, or is this just for the course? Am I being tricked here? Should I cosplay being a DAO participant, or am I actually a participant? Right. So I saw you kind of doubting that at some moments, probably because, as you said, the mission was so big that that almost made you think, like, is this just for shit and giggles? But now I guess during the incubation you became convinced that this is a being, this is a beast.
Leave it to
Yeah.
the authors of How to DAO to know how to run a DAO efficiently, because one of the things we notice in the DAO space a lot is like how bogged down some organizations can get in the bureaucracy of it all, the direct democracy, that sort of clash of different personalities. But I'm hearing you guys say that, like, when you brought together all of these different personalities, it actually ended up boosting your efficiency a lot, which I find really interesting. It was really cool to watch because, like you said, like, I, you need dreamers, right? But you also need people who are very practical. You need the passion and the inspiration to keep you going, and then you need the people who are like, hey, what's our next step? What are the logistics we need to get done around this so that we can actually reach that dream? And it's amazing to see both of those coming out in like the first 5 minutes of our talk. I'm just very impressed. But I wanted to ask if that's okay, a little bit more about this DAO that we came out with at the end of the incubator, as Dan put it. If you had to summarize, and I suppose you could each, take a turn if you like. If you had to summarize maybe the goal you settled on at the end, and maybe the processes that you came out with, is there a roadmap ahead of you that you feel you have some clarity on now that we've been through this process. I'd love to like shout that out and then do some more, educate more of the decent community on what you guys are up to, because I would love to put some resources behind it.
Ooh.
So the command and control initial idea, that had an idea for a class project was the structure that got started. And I think having it redefined and requalified and kind of redirected by the community really needs to happen. And so in my mind, I am aware of large organizations that do good around the world in very old-fashioned, high-risk behaviors, where the DAO would be an amazing jump in efficiency, but simply doing what they do, but leveraging the DAO as a way to do what they already do. So for me, I just see this as an efficiency opportunity to partner with local communities that they're already working with, but just get rid of the centralized delivery mechanisms that currently are outdated and high risk, and adapt to each of the community pieces. So I see this, I don't know if we have a roadmap, but I do see the need for this to happen out globally, but to be very local and specific. It's not a cookie cutter rinse and repeat model. This allows for decentralized communities to say, hey, we have a need in this space. Is there someone that can step in and fill the gap, or do we have the resources locally here just to create the ecosystem to just do what we do better? And I think there's a lot of innovative ideas out there that needs the DAO so we can share knowledge and learn from each of the smaller communities. Dan, I'll let you you were the other side that came into the conversation questioning whether we could get this done, and I think really helping us to restructure the roadmap discussion.
I think one of the questions for me around Connected Community DAO is related to the wider question about Web3 really is, which is like, when is the world going to be ready for us? I live in Christchurch, New Zealand, and we have, it's quite a tech focused city. We've got a lot of innovative hardware tech companies, a lot of software companies, and I went to a tech meetup, like the local tech industry meetup, association and everything. And what are you up to, Dan? Well, I'm working in Web3. Nothing. So
You mean you work at Bitcoin?
So, well, they didn't. No, they just had nothing at all. So then I had to say, well, crypto, and then they think, oh, you're a Bitcoin speculator. It's like, no. So, so the day when people in the local community have crypto wallets and can participate in a DAO or receive tokens for their volunteer effort, I think that's a little way off. But that doesn't. I don't think that's a reason for us to stop doing what we're doing, because I think it's coming.
Yeah. So, and I can tell you that I went to an event that we did some good in the community, and a venue awarded a coin that we could then turn in to get food and drink at the same venue. And it came to life for the 30 or 40 people that were connected to that crypto actually could create value. So, we went through and served and did an action, and we got this crypto coin that had no meaning to us, but then we walked into a venue that had organized in the background, and it suddenly kind of brought it to life, saying, oh, so if other organizations in our city accepted this crypto coin, this would be amazing. This is like, oh, okay, I would do this again if I knew I could come back in here and order a drink or get some food. And it, while it was only one venue and there were only 2 or 3 out there, it was the first time I actually purchased something using a coin that I earned simply by helping someone else. And it really kind of changed my belief that Web3 and crypto could actually impact other people's lives. So, I mean, I'm a dinosaur. I didn't grow up, I work at the House of Web3 in San Francisco, and I host community. I learned stuff, but I didn't. My career has been in the Web2 enterprise space for decades, right? And this is new for me. It's like I'm walking in with a different perception of what is the value we're trying to do, what is our long-term goal. And I knew that in the enterprise space, I could just see a declining interest in organizations maintaining status quo. There's an openness and a willingness to shift. They're just not quite sure how real it is or when is that time to shift. So getting involved in the DAO conversation for me was absolutely critical. I do think for people doing some incredible things out in the world, if they understood what DAOs represented, I think they would see this as the way to grow their impact in a low cost way. And I think crypto becomes an easy way where you start getting away from the fiat dollars of every country and some of the vulnerabilities of supporting people in countries where their fiats are highly vulnerable, right? They go away quickly, they lose everything. They have to restructure everything. And I think it's we're not Bitcoin, but crypto does represent a new wave and a new way of looking at problems and the new ways we can solve them.
It's interesting. I feel that there's a sort of lack of like material realism in some of the mind share in crypto. There's a new meta, a new trend sort of emerging, I think, of like IRL engagement, right? Of, one of the old companies I worked for got their start organizing crypto events in person, and you'd get groups of 20 people or so. And eventually now that, now they're launching conferences of thousands. And I think, Dan, to your point, the world isn't ready for connected community DAO yet, but it becomes ready by your efforts as you organize in your local spaces and as you do those things that give people those tokens to onboard them and show them what it's all about and the difference that you're making. And I'm really excited to see what becomes of this. Because I think this is people talk about adoption all the time of crypto, and they're talking about usable apps and things like that. But what about usable organizations? What about human people that we interact with? That I think people are the most important on-ramp to Web3. And you guys are really, really exemplifying that in a very important way, I think.
Yeah. But now, Aaron, now comes the real test, right? Because you have built this amazing platform. We had the pleasure to bring the whole DAO onto Decent and to really play with it. And this is a huge test, right? Because these are people, just like Paul said, from a diversity of backgrounds, definitely not crypto native, not all of them. And so you were that bridge in a way for them between, entering this course and then going into this gate of let's say, on-chain collaboration that Decent really provides. So I'm curious, what the participants thought about this whole suite of tools, right? What do you think about these? Let's get the honest word out, and just for you as a user, as a let's say new user to this whole thing. What do you think, Dan? I saw, why don't
I
you
can kick this off.
kick it off?
No, I think and why we also started this cooperation with Decent is because they use the basically market standard smart contracts, which are super safe. Like Open Zeppelin, there is a safe smart contract at the back end. Like those are smart contracts we can trust. And when you are a DAO, like you want the treasury to be safe. Like you don't want to mess around with that. You can mess around with some structure around the rows and different things, which if it goes wrong, it's not like you are losing all the money you had inside. So I think there is sort of design space outside that kind of main smart contract. What I see as a improvement, what we discussed already with the team, and you are working on it, it's the human readable kind of part of the tool, because some of the things are a code or transaction on blockchain. But if we are bringing people from Web to enterprise, they're like, ooh, I don't know what that means. Maybe I can translate it. I can go to Etherscan, I can check the contract, I can check different things because I'm used to kind of been in the space. But if we want to onboard really the masses, and I think it's great that you are kind of working from the safe smart contracts towards more human readable kind of the future. Like if I'm launching this proposal, what it actually means. Like who is getting the money? Like, can you just say Paul is getting 1 million tokens, not like Paul's address, some other address, some numbers, you know? So I think like this is like a big thing for us as an ecosystem. We need to translate, and that's what How to DAO is doing as well. We need to translate these complex technical systems to human readable kind of tools and education materials, so we can actually get people really on board with the vision and start using it. So that's, I think, big piece we already discussed, and I'm excited to work like together on that, like that, you know, we can provide you with the feedback and like get the tool we actually need as a How to DAO to get more people into DAO. So that's that. Dan, do you have any other feedback on the Descent tool? What was your experience with it?
I really enjoyed using Descent and getting to know it. We connected it to our snapshot instance. We had an initial token distribution just to a very small number of wallets that we were lucky that those wallet holders constituted a quorum. Given the quorum parameter that we had set, we were able to actually then we had a couple of goes, but the second go we got those folks to actually approve a wider token distribution. We had an airdrop, so all of that stuff was really cool. As regards to the UX, once again, I think this is a microcosm of a wider problem. I hear all this talk about onboarding users to Web3, and yet my experience is there is no onboarding. There is only the rabbit hole. It is a highly technically mediated context. And more so, I'm often reminded of where we were as regards the internet, 30 years ago, when it was only, you had to be pretty technical to even get an internet connection. And I can only hope that Web3 goes through the same trajectory. But even now, it's like super difficult. Like, something that used to be really easy, like watching television, has suddenly become actually quite complicated for lots of people. And even that watching TV's only really just started to get a bit easier finally. So I think we're early. It's a long way to go, and it's super easy to, you can, like, finding UX challenges is like shooting fish in a barrel. Fixing them is really, really hard. So full of respect for your work, Aaron, and your people at Descent.
Yeah. And I think AI gives you an opportunity to picture lowest common denominator, people coming in with no experience and understanding what they're doing, and create a workflow that's just a visual workflow that tells you what's next and explains what's going on. A little side-by-side tool would be nice, just so you can be the end loser in the group, and you can track along and get educated as you're making decisions and using the user interface. I think it would be really helpful to kind of like baby step individuals into an understanding of what's going on at a high level. I don't think the technical side is required. But that being said, I have been asked to support a number of DAOs in the region that I'm at. I don't think they were really DAOs the way that this class explained a DAO. And I used another tool, which I will not say their name here, and I can tell you that your tool actually executes. We were using approvals on another tool that would, they would have technical difficulties that force us to wait 2 and 3 days before we could approve funding, right, for individuals. And it was just ridiculous that they couldn't fix it that quickly. My expectation was every tool is like that because Web3 is new. And I think using your tool, I was like, wait, that was pretty quick. We were able to go through. And I think that it worked. It didn't have those, my expectations were pretty low in terms of using, when it was like another tool, I was like, oh, great. I went through incredible trainings and then had to get, a long pause on, actually, it didn't serve the community well, but I think your tool really does. So I was very impressed with it. I know it's all new for me, so I was learning as quick as I went, but at least it functioned. And it didn't cause any delays that impacted the group for 24, 48 hours, which is, you just can't run a business that way if you're trying to standardize it.
I'm glad we were able to, exceed your expectations there and not be as or not require as many delays as some of the other tools. But yeah, like you said, I mean, there's a long way to go. I think building this tooling is incredibly complex, but also very important to enable DAOs to function efficiently and on-chain organizations in general. I mean, there's so many pitfalls for these organizations already for them to be inefficient or not work as they're intended, and the tooling, the platform that they use, it's imperative that it not be one of those pitfalls. I don't know if you saw, but yeah, we're in version 0.13 right now, so we're not actually even technically version 1 yet. So there's a lot of big things coming. I won't go too into detail, but just to tease, we had a product all hands meeting today, and one of the big conversation topics that we settled on was onboarding flows. It's like, yeah, you need some introduction to the platform, and of course that comes with version 1, and that will make it so much easier. But I'm really really impressed with just the speed with which you all got comfortable using the platform and orientating yourself and getting up and running as an organization. So yeah, massive props to you guys as a team. It was enjoyable and inspiring to watch.
Yeah, and talking about this whole human readable thing, the last chapter of the lesson also dove into how AIs can help DAOs, right? So, and the fun thing about Web3, of course, at least the way smart contracts are set up right now, those are very logical, right? So I found myself at some point trying to understand a piece of output that came after a decision of descent, and side by side with ChatGPT, it interpreted really well what was going on there, and kind of saved me clicking through in a couple of things. So not sure if that is the future per se, right? Making it there's probably director ways to make it readable, but yeah, we're very close to either AI assisted or not to really understanding what we're doing. So that's a win.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited about the direction that the class took us, the technology availability. I'm almost to the point where I want to go get the other dinosaurs and say, hey, come on, check this out. I'm not there yet, but I am getting a lot closer. So I think there's some other organizations that have some really horrific bad practices of moving money around because it's the only way you can help people in other parts of the world. And I think that this really opens up a different model and allows for us to kind of create communities where they live, doing what they do around their strengths, instead of coming in from the outside and assuming weakness. This can assume strengths and just fill in the gaps where there's weaknesses. So I think this gives a new model for even international relief efforts. It assumes that there will be some strengths in the community that they don't need resources, so don't bring those in, but there will be things they do need to have, and we need to find out what those are really quick. So I'm super excited about what this looks like for the future of just our international neighborhood.
This would be awesome. And then, that's why we are here. I feel like our course is growing like 200% basically course over course. And I think it's because people realize that DAOs actually make sense. You have the course, there are a couple people, and then they tell other people, and they're like, hey, this actually makes sense for you. So Paul, I really appreciate this kind of what you are saying. We want to get you on board, and then you tell your friends basically, and where you see hey, this can really help you. And so just a teaser here, we will be, of course, running another cohort, which will probably start mid-June. So we will announce it and put the dates, and having some of the non-profits, what we were talking about, on board, and really explain to them how this works, would be amazing, because I feel like non-profits actually is one of the biggest use case for DAOs. Even How To DAO itself is now becoming a non-profit organization, because it just makes sense. Like we do this education, we are trying to like expand this communities and stuff like that, and we are also we'll be having our own token in a couple of weeks. So we are trying to do the same what we are preaching basically, and together as an ecosystem, we can definitely make a big impact, and the impact it's very needed. Uh, on that note, like I just was reading article. So like the mayor of San Francisco is very active right now of cleaning up the San Francisco. You know, we will see the results, but so far it looks pretty good. They arrested a lot of drug dealers last week. They are building like new shops on in the areas where like people would not open a shop like a couple months ago. Um, and but one of the big thing which they mention is like the price per like homeless people in San Francisco, it's like 4 times higher than LA or something like that. Like it's just like there is so much money actually like used to help the city, but they are really inefficient. And like if we can get the DAO, the transparency and the community behind it, and I'm talking a little bit from high level perspective here. Paul, you probably know more about it, but like I feel like we can help more people because with the same funds, we will just be more efficient. We can track the impact, and we can maybe even like create like more long term kind of solution. Because as I see it, the DAOs can also get the people in, like the people we are helping, that can become the leaders of the DAO. Same as Love Never Fails is doing, great job with that. Like, the victim of human trafficking are actually then becoming the leaders of the organization itself, and it's just impressive, and it's a great to see. Like, Paul, do you have anything to add to it, or like
Sure.
tell
So, so,
me tell me that
yeah.
I'm totally wrong?
No, no, no. So here's the stats in San Francisco. They spend $1.5 billion trying to solve homelessness in San Francisco. They suspect a large portion of that goes to people who don't deliver services anymore, or they can't afford to do those services, but they have no way to see what people are doing. Um, I know there's a requirement now that anybody that gets over $100,000 US dollars has to report on the good they're doing. And in response to that, the organizations are saying, well, we should make that $1 million because we don't want that level of transparency down to $100,000. So I know there's a big push to say that was a requirement 2 years ago. Nobody made the requirement. This year, they're actively trying to figure out how much money is being out there. And there have been groups that tried to capture data in traditional Web 2 ways. And the reality is people gather data in the way that they can self-justify their use of resources. They don't have any standard way of talking about how they take care of the neighborhood or they take care of the community. So having an ontology that represents the activity that happens in the community is a starting point. And once everybody can agree to the language, and then using Web3 and its blockchain capabilities, you can keep your data private, except for the data that needs to be shared in terms of what you're doing to take care of the community. And we think that there's probably a third of that money that will resurface as a way to come back and help the community in real ways. And then we just have to set up the goals so that the transactional activity data tells us if we're actually producing the outcomes that the city is looking for. And the mayor's group now has a way to say, hey, we can turn off money that's not being used for what is important to our city, and we can turn on more money and actually measure the outcomes that are happening out there. So this gives us, with the DAO model and a blockchain capabilities, the way to allow people to stay private in areas that are running their business, but to be very transparent about the way they're helping the community and what they're doing out there. So it should be really interesting in terms of how this rolls into the city strategies moving forward. Fun stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about that, and I hope like well, we discussed that on the call before. Like, should we use connected communities or community? And we decide connected community is the way to go. So I'm super excited to have like the Tenderloin connected community, helping solving homelessness in San Francisco, or like other areas where it's really needed, and be decentralized, empower everyone who is on the ground doing great job. And the good thing is it's transparent from day one. Like we see where the money goes, where it flows, like because it's on blockchain. So like excited about the future of connected community. So maybe on that note, like then from the other side of the ocean, New Zealand, how you see like the connected community, like maybe helping there, or like like how you see this vision kind of playing out.
Obviously, connected community has the potential to generate a network effect that could be global, but that's a big vision. It's a long way down the track. The only chance it has of achieving anything like any network is to start with a small area of high network density. And to me, because Paul, you're in San Francisco, Punkai, you're there too, and a bunch of the other people in the How to DAO cohort are in San Francisco, it seems to me natural that that's the place to start to generate that high density network, like start a network. So I don't think I can, I don't see this popping up in my neighborhood uh, just yet, but I'm really impressed that um, so one of the fantastic things about this course was like Punka, you and Gideon, you come and you bring a lot of ability and enthusiasm, and you also attracted a cohort of people who brought a lot of ability and enthusiasm. Like people just threw themselves into this. And we had a call today. It was the last call that was associated with the course, and people showed up. Course is over, and they're still showing up. They're showing up not for the course, but for connected community DAO. So I see it does actually. I'm hopeful that it has a chance of getting going. And even though I think my involvement might be peripheral, I'm totally clear that I will continue to be involved in some way, even at this distance.
Yeah, Dan, and I really appreciated your participation because I think you brought a sense of reality and some experience that the rest of the community, they had energy, but they didn't have that sense of, okay, this is a long journey, and we have to think about the long journey that a lot of our activities here will be played out in a larger community down the road. And so let's think about what that down the road looks like. So you brought a lot of that experience into the conversation that made us pause and think, okay, that's a really good point. We should probably think about the way we structure, phrase, take next steps. And I think it got us to take a minute to pause and want to come back and revisit the original concept so that we go forward with the best options for success.
Thank you. I've been thinking a lot about what we've got as a DAO that differentiates us and what's the kind of key selling point to the rest of the kind of NGO world. And for all my enthusiasm about DAOs, they're not a magic bullet. There's a bunch of problems they still don't solve, like how people form an organization together, how we figure out how we get along, what our processes are in relationships, how we get the jobs done that need to be done. They don't solve how we can determine if interventions have actually taken place in the real world, and they definitely don't just determine whether those have led to outcomes. But I think and I don't think it fixes organizational efficiency even. It's like doing anything at scale is always going to be hard. There's no magic bullet for that. But there's one thing that I think is a real differentiator, and Punka, you mentioned that earlier, um, which is you can follow the money. So the more people and this is not a DAO thing, it's just a crypto thing. The more people in a network who are using wallets, even if those wallets are, even if it's not sort of immediately obvious who owns those wallets, you don't need any reporting to see where all the money went. And I think that's a selling point that we can potentially, really take advantage of. So, imagine that there is a treasury, that $1.5 billion, and you can see that hopping through a series of wallets and kind of branching out into the community, and no one has to do anything to make that visible. I think that's a real differentiator.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan. I think like the still biggest use case for crypto is the financial part, basically. Like we are global financial markets, which is sovereign. So there is no control of the banks. Like you cannot be debanked from crypto. You cannot be stop your international transfer on crypto. Like there are so many things where, especially and maybe in the US, we don't really see that as a problem because like the financial market is very mature, but like in other countries, like that's a problem. They might not be able to transact. There is cases where the government takes all their money from the bank account because they just say so. Like they need, well, we are in trouble, so we will take all your savings. Thank you, citizens. And like, and that's kind of like what you don't want to be happening. You don't want to be like subject to this type of control. And with crypto, you control everything. If you lose your money, you lost your money. Like that's your kind of issue. Like you are in charge. And I also see then like what you are pointing out, like when it's a large scale DAO, it will be inefficient at some levels, to share the context with others. That's probably crypto is not solving for that. However, there are studies where DAOs are apparently more efficient than enterprises because because they are more transparent, therefore there are less silos. So if you imagine like big corporate structure, you have this like group which is working together. They don't talk to the groups next to them because they are scared that they will take their budget or whatever is the reason. They just don't talk to each other. And the problem is growing. And when they actually talk to each other, they realize they were working on the same thing, or like these kind of things kind of happening. In DAO, yeah, you would see a lot of maybe arguments on forums, but the arguments get resolved. And then something actually starts happening. So there is still kind of efficiency gains, but just getting back to like that AI kind of topic, like AI is definitely more like prompt to actually improve the efficiency than crypto itself. The crypto just makes sure like everything what we are doing, it's kind of transparent and secure and sovereign, and then the AI can kind of replace our jobs, so we can focus on some other things. And like I also see like we have very live chat, like we have really live chat right here.
Punkar,
So
I wanted to
like
jump in on something that you said, though. It isn't just about losing the individual's a sense of wealth and earnings. When we send resources down to do relief efforts and we have to buy them locally, we lose everything when the fiat goes away. So if we're saving up, storing value in that local currency so that we can take care of people and budget over time with their local currency, we lose it all, right? And that's currently our only option for being able to do good in those local countries. I think there's a huge impact that it has in terms of the value that you can bring. And I think with the DAOs, it allows for us, like when we want to solve a problem locally in San Francisco, I have two people from one organization, one person from one organization. Who's going to pay for the thing we want to do? We just can't do it. So in a structure with a DAO, we could say, oh, we'll drop it into the DAO and give them permission to use it to buy that stuff. It gives us a way to execute, allowing the organizations to maintain their separation, but having a collaborative way that they can share resources with each other. So I think it just has a very, really functional, like it's the right time to have this conversation. We're not ready for it yet, but we need to know that it's out there and that the tools are getting in place for us to be able to be more efficient at the smallest levels.
yeah.
And, at the bigger levels, yeah, there's going to be a lot of inefficiencies and different viewpoints. But I think when you get down to the local community levels, everybody wants to do good for their community. And as long as you're funneling down those resources down to the smaller groups, I think they can be as efficient as they can without having to play the upstream alignment issues.
Yeah.
That's one of the really interesting things about like councils, or sometimes called sub DAOs, right? It's like that syndication you can create where you can create these organizational hierarchies that make it easy to keep a fence around your grassroots efforts, right? And so as large as you grow, as long as you're continuing to sort of modularly organize, you can, keep chaos out of the equation to some degree,
Yep.
right? And that interorganizational structure is really interesting as well between like agency one, agency two. Yeah, how can we maybe come together, form a temporary sub DAO, throw some funds in the treasury that we both now have to sort of sign off on? Maybe it's a multi-sig, right? And we want to get just a small group of specialists together to say, we've got this budget for this region and this effort, this project specifically. This is how we're going to allocate it, and we have to coordinate, across organizations. So. Yeah, I think one other thing too, as like, I think this is across, generations. As a Gen Z myself, and then my parents are I think Gen X, and you know, we both share the same sort of mistrust of having seen traditional NGOs and organizations lack transparency to a degree that is like troubling, right? And you want to donate, you're like, oh man, like we're, especially I think younger generations right now, very politically engaged, very, um, you know, concerned about the public good, right? But not trusting of these organizations who don't have transparency. And I think DAOs are a really interesting use case for solving that problem. Maybe we can get more unity and more activation on these public good fronts if only we had a way to publicly manage, the funds that we're giving. We know like, hey, my resources are going to this specific thing, not just like the Red Cross where I have no idea what they're doing. No shade to the Red Cross. I mean, maybe I don't know. I have, I'm neutral on that front, but
Right.
you know what I mean? Like if they were a DAO, I might feel even more persuaded, I would say. Yeah.
And I think along your lines, there's a new model that's coming out, especially where I don't want to give my resources, my stored wealth. I want to give my time. And if my time is documented by the DAO and it's earning coin that I can then donate to that, I'm actually donating my time to that organization. And when I can see that actually with my own hands, I'm working on it, I'm generating value, and I'm giving that value to the organization I've already invested in with my time. Now I'm giving a coin to it. I'm more likely to go back and say, with my stored resources, I'd like to give that too, because I know where it's going to, and there's a trust factor that's out there. So I think this allows for two ways to benefit nonprofits, right? Encourage people to come out, do fundraising by participating in the acts of doing good. And then when those people go home and they know how that money's being spent or how that value is being leveraged, they can go into their own resources and convert and donate as well. So.
Well, we are coming up on time a little bit, so we have like last 5 minutes, but I think this was a great discussion. We went through like, the course and stuff. Like, I would maybe get back to the course right now. Like, if you would talk to like a friend about the course, like what was the thing which like make you like, oh, this is really worth my time? Like what was like this like, or the wow moment, like, what if you can point one or two things basically from the course which would like be like, that's why I would do it again, type of thing, what would it be?
So I feel like I worked at Blockbuster here in the States, and I just got a chance to look over at Netflix. I'm like, you know what, guys? There's a new model on the horizon. And if we go back a couple decades, I think we're looking at kind of a shift in the natural order of the way that we're going to be working in the future. Whether you like it or not, I think it's a change that is needed and actually validates itself. And we need to jump in and start to explore, support, and experiment with that so that we can iterate on top of that and actually start to do good in small ways. And I think that starts to build momentum in terms of how do we bring the future into our everyday conversations. And I think the DAO class really does that for me. So I wouldn't expect people that I invite to come to the DAO class to have a life-changing experience, but I think it starts to kind of look over the horizon to say, what does that look like tomorrow, and how might I adjust my business models and my career path?
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Then what's your one two thing you would mention?
So, assuming that somebody is interested in DAOs, the thing that really differentiates the How to DAO course is the way you integrate theory and practice. Like this is a holy grail for education. We know people learn by doing, but you also need some theory to apply. And the way you integrated those, like it's super successful, I think. You know, you learn something in a lecture and then bang, you're implementing it, and it's not a class project, it's real. It's super effective. You know, perhaps not for everybody, but like I saw a lot of people really vibing with that and launching themselves into it. So I think that's the big thing that you've really succeeded at with this.
Thank you. Love that. Love that. Aaron, for you, like from like more like an outside, what like how the course actually helped you as a decent?
It was really helpful to get to see the onboarding of people who had never used Decent before, but also who are new to DAOs in general, and sort of see, what are the biggest, most exciting things about DAOs for people, right? Also, what are some of the ways we can improve the platform? Like I said, we're coming up on V1, in the near future. One of those things is, yeah, put a barrier around your treasury allocation so we make sure you can pass quorum. That was like a really useful learning for us. And so it's just some of those things that, we're a small team, we're constantly shipping, and like it's incredible and very useful to see people engaging with the platform. I think one other thing is just part of it is that grassroots, you know, like every single person who engages in DAOs matters and is important to this movement and needs to be supported in that. And so, another part of that is just getting connected community DAO. It's a valuable thing for us, and I'm excited to like watch the progression and see where it goes. And I want to participate in future cohorts and like continue to bolster this. One thing I will say is Paul and Punkar, Decent's going to be in San Francisco in a couple months, and we're going to set up a base there, and would love to continue collaborating. And yeah, I would love to just see where this goes from here.
That's awesome, and we appreciate like the partnership there as well, and looking forward to see you in San Francisco. I know we have this discussion what will be the best co-working space. So hopefully we will be in the same one. And Gideon, question to you. What was like the best for you, like best experience for you in cohort 2,
Yeah.
maybe compared to cohort 1?
You know, I think what really changed this time is the experiment escaped the classroom, right? So the DAO that we built in this little lab of ours got a life of its own, and that was really impressive. And I think that was also, thanks to the unwavering dedication, and also the fact that the participants made time at regular intervals for this, right? So the last cohort, we were kind of struggling with that a little bit, kind of, just giving the initiative to people in class to meet each other at their own behest, and that is already that's a huge planning circus that is hard to actually execute on. So the fact that people in class got together at set times and then even arrange more time amongst themselves to get together as teams, that was very effective. I was kind of the victim of that because I wanted to see every team move, so that meant that pretty much every evening in European time I was, going off with the team. But I loved it. I loved the energy and the people in there. I mean, people probably shouldn't video call and drive, but I saw people driving, moving all of their, the stuff from their house from one location to another in Panama and still being in this DAO, right? So that's crazy. It really shows the dedication. So I was really enthused by that, and feeling that energy really keeps me going as well.
Well, that's awesome. I see like this cohort was great for everyone from different perspectives, but like everyone got the value. I shared the excitement, Gideon, with you. Like this cohort was like super dedicated, and like the idea was so powerful that people were just like, running behind that and idea. Like that was great to see, and like I truly hope that the connected community DAO will move forward like that. Like this is not the end. I know we just purchased website this morning, so it's still going. And if like there is some call to action to our listeners, like if you want to support connected community DAO, like you should reach out to Paul or Dan. They definitely need people like who will be running the local communities. Also, if you are more like an ecosystem, like any support, like a grants, there is a fundraising team in Connected Community DAO, which fundraise exactly for those communities. So there is multiple ways you can get involved, and we want this to be, great DAO we launched and create some impact in the world. So thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for participating in the cohort and in the live stream. Uh, and have a all amazing day, and let's stay in DAO.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.